Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Sagittarius, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for now. I find myself under quite some severe cognitive load at the moment, and rather than disappearing, I thought I would keep the readings a little shorter than we usually expect, and I would orient them around right now because, and there are several reasons for that. As things stand, as we get closer and closer to the chaotic centre, if you will, of 2026, I find there's a really limited use case for trying to look ahead at this point, right? It's everything, everywhere, all at once. All things are stacked on top of each other, and the process of tarot is about looking for what is most likely from a given situation, right? That's how we that is how we read. And when time itself, as it certainly feels to me at the moment anyway, stops being linear, when things stop being predictable as per what we've come to expect from life itself, then I'm not sure that looking ahead is helpful. Let's put it like that. I think it's far more helpful to look at where we actually are right now, and particularly on the threshold of the chaos of 2026. So, Saturn's finishing up in Pisces and moving into Aries. Neptune is already in Aries. Neptune is a foggy, distorting energy. Yes, it's higher spirituality and all that kind of thing as well, but it ultimately distorts everything. And with Neptune being so active, I just don't think it's helpful to look forward. So look where we are and judge what the next step would be, because I think that's actually what is going to get us through the chaos of the next few months, is just taking one step at a time. That's my idea about this anyway. So that's what we're going to do, and to that end we're going to pull cards to see where you are right now, try and make sense of that. We're going to look additionally at how to move through the uncertainty of the moment. Hot tip, like we're there already, right? But with some Sagittarius specific information. And then I think it's useful to look at what story has finished, because again, Neptune is distorting everything, and there's a lot of focus on the new cycles that are starting, right? We've got the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which at the point of recording is next week. That's huge, and it does represent a new start, a new story, a new cycle. We'll have Uranus finishing up in Taurus by the end of April. We've got lots of things that are all indicating the start of new things. But in the middle of all of this fog, how easy is it going to be to recognise which stories are ending and hold them lightly and let them go? I think it's going to be quite difficult. So if we can get some sort of idea of what is fading out of your life now, you don't have to waste effort in trying to hold on to it, And then in the extended, we will look at the potential pitfalls or traps of the shadow that may come up during this time, and honestly I think there will be a few for everyone. And then we'll look at some advice to navigate it. I have also got my Spiral Oracle here. We'll be pulling a card from that. So I hope that's acceptable for you. This is what I have. It's what I can manage this month. So there we go. Let's get some cards out. So first off, where is Sagittarius right now? So first card that we've got is a Sagittarius card. It is the Nine of Wands right there. Let's have a look. We've got the Six of Wands showing up with it. And we've got the Knight of Wands. Holy shit. That's a strong presentation, Sagittarius. If anything, I would say it's a big stamp of, yes, I am here. Right, let's get the rest of the cards out, and then we'll talk about what's going on here. Sorry if you can hear a bit of noise in the background. My heater's just come on. It's fucking freezing here at the moment. How to move through the uncertainty. Ooh. Two of Swords, straight out. Love that. Seven of Wands. And whatever this is, we've got the Queen of Swords. She's on her side, which I think is quite interesting. Can I just say, Sagittarius, I'm fucking loving how this is showing up for you. Anyway, what story is finished for Sag? What do we need to know about that? So, Nine of Cups, interesting. Page of Swords. Makes more sense now. And the Queen of Pentacles, with the Seven of Swords now at the bottom of the deck being the underlying energy that is running through all of this. Now, excuse me. There's something about this which is incredibly positive, and to some extent it makes some sense. All the love in the world, Sagittarius, you can be a little bit chaotic. Right? You're one of the more chaotic signs, and that, I don't know, it's the way that other people perceive you rather than the reality of who you actually are, because what other people can't see is the way that Sagittarius can let an arrow fly and make their way to it. Occasionally with the odd side quest here, there and everywhere, right? But never really losing sight of where that arrow landed. There could be all sorts of deviations along the way, but you can hold those. To an outside view, it looks chaotic. They don't understand how you work, and sometimes that comes across as, I don't know, thoughtless or careless or even a little bit negligent, right? But they don't see the bigger picture, and you do. And I think it is that ability to see the bigger picture that is actually going to see you do rather well through 2026, provided that you don't fall into one of these, pitfalls or shadow traps that I was talking about here for you. And to be honest, I'm seeing a lot that says you're going to move around and over, and you're not going to have too much of a problem with that. Nevertheless, let's start up here first with where you actually are. I said it's all fire across the top. And because the signature of this year is distinctly fiery, it's a fire horse year, Mars is incredibly active. We've got a lot of energy in your sister sign of Aries, and that will be supported by Jupiter moving into Leo also. It's not going to happen until July, but it's like there's a lot of fire and air going on, and you are built for these times, quite frankly, Sagittarius. So 9 of Wands, 6 of Wands, Knight of Wands. That 6 of Wands is sort of cocked a little bit, and I feel like that's because it's under construction, which is a funny term. The 6 of Wands indicates success. It is Jupiter in Leo, actually, interestingly enough, and it's being seen to be successful. And I think maybe what you're starting to see around you is that there's a vibe shift around the way that people have seen you in the past, which is to say careless, thoughtless, maybe more lucky than you deserve to be in terms of being able to get out of situations and all that sort of stuff. But again, right, this is because they haven't seen the full picture. I think you yourself feel like you're weathering the storm that has been 2026 so far actually okay. Like, this is okay, this is fine. It's not wildly successful beyond your wildest dreams, but then Sagittarians got a hell of an imagination on them, right? So you can always go bigger with everything. But this 6 of Wands feels more like it's angled towards these people here who are starting to see how much your faith, your trust, your optimism with regard to the universe and everything that you're experiencing is actually immunizing you against, at least from other people's perspective, right? Immunizing you against the worst of 2026, or the things that may be happening in 2026. Like, you are here, but other people are also starting to see you go this way. Now, I like this very much because I've been banging on about, the whole teacher leader guide thing for how many years now. I've been talking about this a lot. But one thing to make really, really clear, because I know that has freaked a few people out, and that's fine, that's okay. Understand that a lot of the energies that are coming up next, I've used this metaphor quite a lot, is a little bit like pouring two lots of ants into a jar, right? They will ignore each other. They just will not pay attention, just climb over each other, and they just get on with their business and doing what they're doing. But we're moving into a period of time where that jar's about to be shaken. And in that shaking, all those chemical signals get mixed up, and people tweak out, ants tweak out. And then when the shaking stops, all the ants start eating each other and fighting and all that kind of thing, right? The point that I'm trying to make is it's difficult to find a way to, while the jar is shaking, be of service, teach, lead, guide, all that kind of thing. There's too much volatility, there's too much tumult, there's too much going on. It is at the point when the jar stops that the work really begins, right, in terms of teacher, leader, guide stuff. Which is to say, it's all about embodiment this year. It's not asking you to turn as many people to the light side as you can. Just beware of cults and shit like that this year, right? It is about embodying the principles that you yourself have worked to have established within yourself for the longest time. Because as this card is kind of turning like this, it's like more people are looking at you and the way that your optimism remains, your faith remains, your hope remains, your capabilities remain, right? There's no sense of you being kind of knocked off your horse here at all. You're like, no, this is exactly what it's supposed to be. This is fine. There's something deeply inspirational, I think, about the way that people are beginning to see you, right? There's a depth that they are perceiving in you that they didn't see before. And even if they don't quite understand the mechanism by which you got to where you are, at the same time, I'm not even sure if people are thinking about it as deeply enough to say, maybe Sag was right all along, and maybe the weird and chaotic ways that they have actually were the right ways. He says, like, in this moment where things are very, very intense, you seem like an unshakable force of optimism out in the world, and that's catching people's attention. Now that's important, teacher, leader, guide stuff, because if you yourself are showing up as an inspirational figure, and I think that's what this is here, then people are likely, certainly within your area of effect, to start to orient towards more of what you're embodying than what the world is telling them to be frightened of. I mean, you don't think that that is massive? Like, Sag, we need a word. This is huge, you know? Knight of Wands is up there. He's got a really intense look on his face. He's ready for battle. The battle is not against all of the ways in which we've been divided, right? It's not a battle of political opponents. It's not a battle of, to be fair, it's not really a battle of ideologies or anything like that. It's a battle of maintaining self while the jar is being violently shaken. And still managing to embody everything that you've always stood for, while things start to tip over into the erratic, unpredictable, chaotic sprawl that the next few months are going to be. Well, I haven't really spoken about this Nine of Wands here. Well, we talk about this quite often as indicating boundaries, right? Boundaries being in the right place. And there's something to be said for the way that you're maintaining good boundaries. But because the nines represent an energy of management of whatever element they're talking about here, we've got the management of fire, management of inspiration, management of passion, management even of faith. Because that feels more fiery to me than it does feel watery. But we've got the things that you do, the actions that you take, being informed by that faith. There's something oddly linear about the presentation of that Nine of Wands, which is somewhat out of kilter with how the rest of the world is right now. And it's so it feels like it's linked to such a sense of self that you yourself feel unshakable. Now, this Knight of Wands, which is you and is a very strong presentation of self, what do we have here? Ten of Wands, Eight of Wands. It's like because you can perceive the bigger picture, there's no terror about what is ending. It's just a recognition that of course it must end, and it must end so that the new cycle can begin, right? This whole top line is fire here, but it's the strongest presentation of fire that to be honest I could have expected to have seen. Perceiving the end of a cycle, recognizing the beginning of the new one. And maybe to some extent even being present in that space between. Look at this, 9, 10, Ace. It's like the world is realizing it's not in Kansas anymore. But you knew you were always aware you weren't in Kansas, and so this hasn't come as a shock. It hasn't come as a surprise, and because you've ridden this carousel a few times, Sagittarius, it's like yeah, well this is all ending. This is fine, and yeah, there is that liminal space in between, and then there is the new beginning. You seem to me to be positioned beautifully to look for opportunities. It's a really intense face he's got on there. We're looking for opportunities. So the question of how to move through the uncertainty is an interesting one then when it comes to you, because the very first card out is the Two of Swords. Now the Two of Swords is a level of uncertainty quite often, right? It's that staying in one place because we don't know, we don't feel like we have enough information to make a decision either way. Although, to be fair, the way that this card is structured, it usually says that subconsciously we actually do know exactly what we want, but we perceive a threat there, right? So we pretend that we can't see it, we hold ourselves in a state of stasis and refuse to move one way or the other. When it shows up in the reverse, what we've got is somebody who is not uncertain, someone who has actually got access to all the information that they need to make the decision that they intend to make. It's like there is nothing that is hidden when the Two of Swords is in reverse. And whatever kind of mental stasis that the upright card might represent, like that just isn't happening here for you. To wit then, there is almost no uncertainty. Why? Because you know exactly what is happening. And you know that you've been through enough unpredictable situations that you know you're enough. There have been few signs that I've read for that have seemed this planted in self as you do here, Sagittarius. It feels like all the illusions are being ripped away, and these are things that you knew intuitively for a long time anyway. You were just sort of waiting for everybody else to catch up. And so maybe things like certainty haven't really played that much of a role in your thinking anyway, right? Everything is about the uncertain and the unpredictable and the unexpected adventure, or the ability to turn everything into an unexpected adventure. And the Seven of Wands is Mars and Leo, right? It's a defensive, guarded energy sometimes. But actually, this here, particularly with reference to the cards that are sitting either side of it, feels more like having the courage of your convictions. That's it. What do you know? What do you lean into? What have you been leaning into? How can you lean into it more? And so it's like the more chaotic the world around you gets, the more comfortable you are in being yourself, because there's an alignment happening, but the alignment is happening around the revelation of truth, a higher truth, a bigger truth. And it's not a cognitive process for you, which is very, very cool, because part of the problem that we're going to see this year is people getting stuck in their own head, right? Because they're wedded to the old, they want things to be, normal, when really is anything being normal for you, Sagittarius, right? The normality is the lack of normality, right? This is how you end up having these extraordinary adventures, whereas a simple trip to the shops ends up turning into something else. Why? Because you embody a kind of truth. You embody a kind of calm. You embody, actually, at this point, I would go as far as to say a kind of authority, certainly over yourself, and people are responding to that. It is noticeable, let's say, in times of crisis, the people who don't lose their shit. But it's not predicated on a need for you to understand the details of everything. It's not even predicated on a need for you to be presented with evidence and facts that support what you intuitively always knew, which is the world is not what everybody thought it was. I would go as far as to say, like, your intuition has been on fire your entire fucking life, and maybe on reflection there have been points where you've looked back on that and gone, well, I don't know why I decided to do that, but I did, and then it led to this. There's a fluidity with how you move around the world. So when things start shaking, it's just like, well, why not? Because it could be because of a number of things, right? But everybody catching up to the idea that maybe everyone is connected and situations are not coincidental, and you're in the right place at the right time, and you trust that you will be in the right place at the right time, and you will notice the right things. In a time of crisis, in a time of deep uncertainty, there's literally nothing here that you haven't experienced in some form or another before. And I would include in previous lifetimes too, right? Because this big picture that you've got access to, it's not freaking out about the details. You know, the Queen of Swords to some extent is a bit of a cognitive grind, right? We're looking for the truth. We're trying to, you know, find the evidence that supports a particular kind of truth. Like, you're not there, you don't need that. You feel to me like you're connected to something bigger. And to be honest, that seems to me to be the energy that you're kicking out at this time too. Why would you worry? Like, everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be great. We've got to go through an ending to get to a beginning. But it is the level of embodiment of that knowledge, of that awareness. Doesn't need proof, doesn't need evidence, doesn't need all of the other things that other people would need in order to slowly start orienting themselves toward a new reality. You spent your entire life galloping through all different kind of expressions of that. So when we come down to here, you know, what story is finished, what narrative is done, what set of circumstances are done. For you here, I think everything hinges on this Page of Swords. Because the Page of Swords is about mental expansion for me. It is about opening oneself up to the possibility that there is more. Right? There are more details, there is more pertinent information, there is things that we are yet to discover, that adventurous kind of mission element of Sag, right? Always expanding out, expanding the horizons, expanding everything. But the cards here, in terms of, you know, what is ending for you, is any kind of feeling that you don't have all of the information. Like, to be fair with what I'm seeing here in the cards, like, I don't think that would be the case anyway. This is not broadening your horizons to the extent that you are being presented with information that you did not already know, as it pertains to your emotional regulation, what makes you happy, how you manage your emotions. So that already, right? Emotional regulation. But how you move towards the things that make you happy, whatever's going on in the background, whatever backdrop there is. This chop wood and carry water thing that you've been doing for, what, God, 3 years now? It's disciplined you enough to show you that you're just as capable when you dig in as you are when you pivot. Now, I think that that was a really important lesson for Sagittarius, because the the pivoting sometimes was an escape mechanism. It was what stopped you from looking at what you didn't want to see. It's like, nah, this definitely does not fall under the category of hedonism and escapism and all that kind of thing. So I don't really want to engage with it, right? Like the running away from things. You've been in situations where you have had to face those things that were really difficult, and you've done it with the same level of capacity that you would previously have pivoted away. And now you have mastery of both. You don't have to worry, because you know you can function, you know you can cope, you fucking got this, and you know you do. So is there any more information about the internal workings of your emotional management structure that you need to be aware of? No. This is no. Do you have to put more work into your emotional regulation? No. You just need to maintain where it actually is, because it's serving you really, really well at the moment. To some extent, we could say, being as the Nine of Cups represents highest goals, hopes, dreams, and aspirations and all that kind of thing, there's no need for you to be kind of daydreaming about adventures that you could have, because you're in the middle of one right now. And it's an order of magnitude probably more interesting than anything that you could have brought to. Well, that's probably untrue, right? I'm sure you could have all sorts of amazing adventures in the cosmos in your own imagination, right? But what's interesting about this is that, to some extent for you, things this year are not going to change in any kind of meaningful way, in so much as it's going to rocket you into a long dark night of the soul, or cause you to change your circumstances so quickly that it freaks you out. That's what I'm saying. Because within your mind and in the big picture that you're working to, like, everything is just as it is. And you will deal with it accordingly, right? You were built for a time of fire, and you were built for a time of fire that is supported by air. Like I said, we're not in Kansas anymore, but we are somewhere that you deeply know, deeply understand. And to some extent now, it becomes more about being of service through the embodiment of everything that you actually are, right? Bringing your sense of self up to the surface and letting everybody else see that. To some extent, what we could have here is increasing confidence in letting your weird light shine, Sagittarius. That could well be it too. You're not quite totally comfortably there yet, but near as damn it, and people are paying attention. Like I said, there's very little that you can do that is service oriented at the point where the jar is shaking, but in that moment of cease, in that moment where people are taking a breath, here's a space where you can do something, and you can expand it. You can expand it so fucking hard, which is the really fascinating part of this. It doesn't matter if it's only a moment. Like, you can expand that out and do a lot in that moment before everything starts to, swirl again. What I'm trying to say here, Sagittarius, and I don't know if I've said anything to this extent to the other signs, like, you are being of service by simply showing up and being yourself, right? Just being a Sagittarius in the middle of all of this weird thing, and you're bearing the way you hold yourself, your sense of humour, your faith, your optimism, all of these things. It's incredibly important this year. And there's no more expansion at this point that is required in you to discover bits of you that is that needs tweaking, right? You just need to show up and you just need to be yourself. That's it, full stop. This Queen of Pentacles here is about understanding value. She's about understanding what it's important to invest. And look at this. I love the way that she's pointing up here, and she looks like she might be pointing to this pentacle, which would make sense because it's the only pentacle that's on the disc behind her, right? But she's also kind of almost slightly lazily pointing at the moon. I just want to bring that a little bit closer so you can see it. You see what I'm just gonna, yeah. And what is the moon? It's the internal subjective experience, right? It is the subconscious. It's all the stuff that's going on in the background. It is situations that are somewhat mysterious that we don't have answers for. You know, the moon can be secrets and things that are hidden, you know, things that are getting ready to be revealed, perhaps. This Queen of Pentacles is saying, like, don't underestimate how much value you hold by simply being present in these times. That's what this says to me. And the story of you needing to work on yourself internally is kind of, it's winding down for now, at least anyway. I mean, the work is never done. We say this a lot, right? But the extent to which you need to withdraw in order to facilitate that, it's done for now. Now it's about you showing up. Now it's about you kind of showing people what the net result is of all of the things that you've been working on for such a long time, because you are needed. We've got the Seven of Swords underneath there. Now that's an Aquarius card. And sometimes it's called the Thief card. It talks about deception and all that sort of thing. I remember we're moving into a time of great deception. Remember what I said at the beginning about Neptune being incredibly active. Those people who are looking for the truth are probably not going to find it right about now, because everything is foggy, everything is distorted. All we can really work with is the next step and the next step. But to some extent, because you have always lived your life in the now, and the next step has only been the thing that you needed to know, so you let your arrow fly and you'll get there at some point. But what's the next step? Is it in this direction, or do we go this way, and now this way, and now this way, right? Always orienting yourself towards eventually reaching the arrow. Is this in... The Seven of Swords here feels to me like everything just fucking making sense, which is weird. It's not usually how I read the Seven of Swords at all. You know, there's the deceit element to it, but there's also, and because we're talking about the pursuit of truth, there is also the strategy, the risk, the taking a gamble on something. But somewhere in between, where we're not lying to ourselves, and we almost don't need to gamble on something because it just is what it is. It's everything making sense. To some extent, it feels like whatever oddball energy you've felt bouncing around in your life as a Sagittarius so far, and whether you thought that on some level this was you not fitting in, right? So you had to just bounce over the top of a new experience over here, and one over here, and one over here, and so on and so forth. It feels to me the realization that you've always been working to a higher truth than everybody else could perceive. And so, like, everything's starting to make sense now, because this false space, it's starting to collapse around everybody. But you always knew there was something else. You always knew there was a bigger picture. And I think finally people are ready to, they're starting to arrive at the point that, like I said, you might actually be right. It's like, to some extent, Sag, you're going to be proven right, left and centre. And you are being proven right, left and centre. And I think there was a point in time where that would have meant a lot to you. I don't think it means that much anymore. It feels like you're just sort of getting ready to help support people through what happens next. Like I said, you just have to show up and be yourself, because that, against the backdrop of everybody else, is going to give big teacher, leader, guide energy. Just embody the fire, just be what you are. This is really, really interesting. So I'm going to go to the extended now. If you would like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. You can do that on Circle, you can do that on Self. I would be delighted to see you in either place. If that's not for you, that's fine. I mean, it really is as simple as you think it is. Sag, you just got to show up. Just got to be here. This is not a time for navel gazing and introspection, right? The time of fire is here. So it's about getting out there and just being yourself. You have no idea how fucking helpful that's going to be to everybody in the next few months. And that's fine. Like, you don't need to understand it. You just need to embody it. Just need to be it. Put yourself out there, you know. All right. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.